Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We are in conversation with the leader of the Mahajana Eksath Peramuna, Dinesh Gunawardena, as well as the leader of the joint opposition of the Sri Lankan Parliament. Mr. Gunawardena, you remember the MEP that was formed, co-formed by your father as well as William De Silva. In September 29th, 1963, 800 delegates representing 1 million workers ratified a charter of 21 demands that sought to encapsulate the demands and goals of Sri Lankan workers. Now, this is a rich history of your political party. However, on the 1st of May this year, it was all about a political might, showing who garners, who gets the most number of workers. And you were part of this campaign as well. Does it really reflect your party's vision?
Well, politics have come into the May Day over the years. I mean, Workers' Day, which is celebrated basically by the workers' parties, moved away from the workers. We have seen the UNP celebrating May Day. Now, but it's their right to have a political show, and over the years, so it becomes a bit competition.
Many say, Mr. Gunawardena, that the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is split, and that's quite evident because your party, which contested under the UPFA, is trying to veer off and are saying that you all want to form a joint opposition in Parliament. It was very evident on the 1st of May that there are differing views within the joint opposition itself. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I don't think there were differences of opinion on 1st of May in the joint opposition. I mean, we presented, as far as we are concerned, from a workers' angle, the speeches that we had to deliver.
Mr. Gunawardena, let me drag your attention to a speech made by one of your colleagues who is also a member of the joint opposition. He is none other than the leader of the National Freedom Front, Mr. Vimal Weerawansa, who was the former Minister of Construction and Engineering Services. He said that the joint opposition rally, that everyone should unite, put up black flags in their doorstep when Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, arrives in the country. However, the leader of the joint opposition, you are, but you have President Mahinda Rajapaksa as well, who you all envisage to be a leader of your political party as well. Him meeting Narendra Modi along with Professor G.L. Peris and Gotabaya Rajapaksa. And you did not see black flags in front of Minister Vimal Weerawansa's residence, that is for sure. What's happening?
That shows that it was not a decision of the JO.
But you said that every one of you all got together and unitedly voiced your concerns about the workers' rights.
Yeah.
This is what you just said a couple of seconds ago.
Yeah, as the MEP spokesman and the JO leader, that was the position I took, and my trade union speaker also took that position. There were so many other speakers. Comrade Vasudeva also spoke, but he did not talk about raising black flags because it's May Day. But it was not a JO position, and that was clear when President Rajapaksa met Prime Minister Modi. I mean, if it was so, he wouldn't have met. He wouldn't have met.
So what is the position
I
that
wouldn't have attended.
Sorry. What is the position that former Minister Vimal Weerawansa said during the May 1st rally, if that's the case? Whose position is that?
That is
at the joint opposition May Day rally, you have a political party political party representative expressing his views. If this is the case, whose opinion did he carry on that day?
That is his own party view that he expressed. No, not joint opposition. But the country also did not cooperate. It was clear. The leader himself, President Rajapaksa, met Prime Minister Modi, which shows that it was not a joint opposition decision or a statement. So
it's sometimes very difficult to understand the joint opposition, Mr. Gunawardena, because when your government was in power, we saw the NFF leader holding a strike action right opposite the UN headquarters. You saw one of your strong ministers from Caledonia, Minister Mervyn Silva, reprimanding the UN Human Rights Commissioner. And several months after all these incidents, if you may recollect right, you had Minister Vimal Veeravansa attending a UN Day conference in the US as well, which probably people have not seen and have not been able to get their hands hold of with this footage. It's very confusing, isn't it? Are you confused? Are you confused with the position of the JO?
No, not with the JO, but JO is an alliance of so many political parties.
You seem confused, Mr. Gunawardena.
No, former Minister Vimal Veeravansa did have his party position of opposing the imposition of various sanctions on Sri Lanka by the UN. And his party thought he should be canvassed in protests with the UN office. That was his position.
But his position was quite well backed by the former Defence Secretary, who said that the police should withdraw from the UN compound at that time.
I doubt that, because there was the police around.
You had the footage, Mr. Gunawardena, the Defence Secretary saying, why did you enter the UN compound area? I want you all to withdraw immediately. He said this to a senior DIG.
Yeah, but the UN compound area is international, the foreign.
So I'm trying to say that because it's a UN charter regulated area, that is why the former Defence Secretary wanted the police to withdraw?
Yeah, if they say please leave, we have to leave, even the US Embassy or the Indian Embassy territory.
But the strike action took place for nearly opposite the UN compound, nearly 36 hours.
Opposite, obviously. It was the main road, Baudalo Kamawata, where everyone was walking up and down. Anyone could sit, anyone could protest. But of course, people were surprised why a minister was protesting there while he was serving in the government.
But Mr. Gunawardena, I was there at the location on this very particular day reporting, and the UN staff were not even allowed to go out without police escort. Were you also in the country at that time, Mr. Gunawardena?
I was very much.
You probably would have seen this.
I have seen this area, so as the whip of the government, I had to just check a couple of times what was going on. So,
did you endorse these actions at that time?
No, I did not endorse, but I had to also tell him and make a request that he should stop. So
did he listen?
I did go and tell him that it is good to stop it and allow. Now already protested. Allow it to go. Allow the functioning of the UN office. We did not agree, all the members of the government, with that protest.
Right, Mr. Gunawardena, let's move from the previous government which you were in power to the present regime. Let's talk about what took place, the cabinet reshuffle that took place. You had a particular ministry, the Ministry of Mass Media and Finance now. You have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs having the Lotteries Board. And a lot of people ask me when I go on the road, why the Lotteries Board under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Why does the Foreign Minister so want the Lotteries Board to come under his purview? Do you know?
Of course, Foreign Minister wanting is one. Foreign Minister being given by the President is another thing. I mean, there are so many ministers who would have gone and asked, please give me this, please give me that. Yes, not. So, and even according to the Act of the Lotteries Board, I don't think it can go under the Foreign Minister. So already there seems to be violations that have taken place.
No, what is so fancy about the Lotteries Board?
It was under the Finance Ministry. So many questions have been raised in the Finance Ministry.
Is it because there's a huge advertising budget for the Lotteries Board?
Lotteries has a budget, the international tenders and various tendering that goes with the lotteries. So many people seem to be thinking that is the treasury. It is not the treasury.
A lot of people are thinking whether it's a treasury. Mr. Gunawardena, quite interestingly, we see the cabinet reshuffle that took place recently being well received by certain sections of the business community. However, majority of the people think that this was just an act to please a few. How do you view this?
I think it's an act to please a few. It cannot generate confidence in the economic stagnation that has taken place. How can you, by changing ministers who follow the same rule? Government has to have a new program, a new development strategy which can be sold, rather than going beyond trying to see where Mahinda Rajapaksa goes, to see where Gotabaya Rajapaksa spends his evening, and the preoccupation of this government. For 2.5 years have passed, as far as said, and just shuffling the ministers who have failed, will it bring anything? Had they brought in some newcomers to cabinet? Yes, some new hope could have been generated. Nothing like that has happened.
So I hand over the baton to Faraz. Yes, Faraz.
I want to ask you this. Even this government is having to cope with the issues of reconciliation and so on. And so, as a member of the last government, do you now regret the non-delivery of the aspirations and the needs of the people of the North, the former conflict areas? Do you now regret that you all didn't do enough?
No, I think, Faraz, I tend to disagree. In what aspect is what the question should be answered? In one aspect, delivery of economic services, we have had over 50% or even 100% than this government. This government has not been able to deliver. Even the houses, they are arguing. TNA is questioning and accusing Swaminathan, Honorable Minister. Swaminathan in return is accusing TNA, 10,000 houses not built.
What did you all do? What did you all build?
We had a program, I must tell you, we had a program, 300,000 displaced people. None of them face any situation of...
You emptied the camps, we agree to that.
Yeah, empty the camp.
You sent them where?
No,
I've just come back from there.
No, you can't send them overnight. You have to demine. And you have to get the certificate after demining. UN said you won't be able to demine for 25 years. But with the help of foreign agencies, we started demining fast. And every demined area was given back to them. Then had to come the Indian housing project. Then we had restored water services,
number of those houses are crumbling.
Health, education, water services, and electricity and transport was restored. I mean, let us not forget, the biggest investment was in the north.
But if that is the case, then, Mr. Dinesh, how come at the presidential poll in January 2015, a record turnout, over 80% turned out in the former conflict areas and endorsed anyone other than Mahinda Rajapaksa?
Yeah, obviously. I agree. No problem.
Was that a serious miscalculation on your part?
You should read choice of Shankar Menon, former defense secretary. He says very clearly in his book, very clearly, Mahinda Rajapaksa had to defeat the LTT because India also wanted the LTT defeated, right? They eliminated our greatest leader, Rajiv Gandhi. There was no way out. LTT was not going to come back to democratic process. So, when you eliminate a certain popular leader and the military arm of the LTT, obviously you have opposition. With the TNA, which is talking big today, didn't say LTT was wrong, never said LTT was wrong. Did they say LTT killing Rajiv Gandhi was wrong? No, I have not read anywhere where they have said that. But entire thing had to be taken on by our government and our president. We held elections in the north. Why? We wanted democratic representatives to be elected, knowing we will get defeated. We could have avoided holding elections. If we were going to deprive the Tamil people of the north of democratic representation, local government elections, they had their representation.
Are you saying that you all actually did the maximum that you all could do?
We were in the process of doing the maximum. President Rajapaksa has had so many rounds of discussions with the Tamil leadership to see areas where...
But 6 years after the end of the war, by the time 2015 came, obviously the people didn't think that you'd done enough.
No, obviously, I mean, there is bitterness of the forces moving in the north. Surely they don't vote looking at the forces for the leader who, but still Mahinda Rajapaksa polled the largest number of votes as an SLAP vote base in the north.
Mr. Gunawardena, we have a question coming in from one of our regular viewers. He's a media professional himself. He says, whatever differences between government and JO, they take a common stand on perks and privileges and take the issue of duty-free car permits. All parties sell duty-free vehicles. What is your comment on that?
It has been so since President Jayawardena's time.
So are you justifying it?
No, I'm not justifying. President Jayawardena brought this because this PR system, you know, under the PR system, those who contest go bankrupt. I mean, maybe myself and few others who are known to the voter, they'll vote. But had I had to run in this competition like any other average candidate, I would have needed millions. This is the whole game that is going on. That's why I propose and push for electoral reform, where the MP is available in the electorate. You don't have to run around a district, spend money. It's a game where the MP is today having to finance a campaign that he can't afford. The party, if the party spends, good. Parties are not that rich in Sri Lanka to spend for all the candidates his entire election expenses. Then comes how he could survive the 5 years. He has to keep going. And so most of them, like the public servants, all the public servants, some of them sell the vehicle. Some of them would use the vehicle. President Jayawardena had a scheme initially where the vehicle was given on a depreciation basis for 5 years, and you could have it only after 5 years. I had a Jeep which is still running, 212, which my voters love because when they see 212 they'll at least give me a vote. Depreciated after 5 years, and then it's transferred to the MP after you pay. Now all these have gone for a, I don't know how it has vanished. President Premadasa's time, President Wijayatunga's time, President Kumaratunga's time, President Rajapaksa's time, all this, and now during President Sirisena and Prime Minister Wickremesinghe's time.
Your answering style is indeed that of a veteran politician. Thank you for your answer. You've served as Minister of Environment.
Very short time.
Okay. What do you think, in your opinion, what do you think the government is doing incorrectly to handle the environmental crisis that seems to be looming? I mean, on the one hand, we have these high-rise, accelerated development-based projects, and on the other, we have environmental disaster. What are we doing wrong?
We have had environmental disaster for over, I would say, 200 years, since the British occupation and plantation industry was forcibly brought on our highlands. This is one problem which we have not addressed properly. Our professionals have been expressing. Then this excess water, how it could be channeled to other areas is the second issue. And what are we going to do with our forestry, which is getting depleted? The essential feature is to protect our forest.
So, Mr. Gunawardena, aren't these the very issues that you as the joint opposition need to raise in Parliament?
We are raising, Sonali, we are raising, you know what I said before, don't forget, JO gets a small slot in Parliament, and you expect us to raise everything. If we get the slot of the leader of the opposition, we would be able to do much more. I'm not asking to be the leader of the opposition, because the government will never give it to me or to the JO. They want an yes man as the leader of the opposition, so that they keep silent. Now, when President, we take the UNP leadership, President Jayawardena, leader of the opposition, Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe, leader of the opposition, for years. We've had Mahinda Rajapaksa, leader of the opposition. They take national issues, irrespective of your electorate. Floods, yeah, it's a national disaster. Leader of the opposition must get up. Garbage, Mithotamulla, leader of the opposition must get up. The first person, address, call for parliament. Nothing like that happens today. Nothing like this. It's a sad state in parliament. That's why I said sad state. Speaker can give ruling and throw me out. That is not going to solve these issues. Issues have to be discussed. If issues are not being discussed, we feel okay, we only represent the north. I have to take only the northern issues. Now I raised issues whether it's the north or the south or the
reconciliation is also a problem, Mr. Gunawardena. Reconciliation is a problem. Reconciliation is a problem in the country that needs to be addressed.
Reconciliation has to be addressed, and there has to be a proper dialogue to address it. It cannot be one-sided, or it cannot be dictated by foreign institutions. We have to get to the rock bottom of various issues. For one issue, I would say the land issue. Now, it's easy to say give back the land. Okay, you give back the land. President Rajapaksa also gave back, this government also gave them. But then people come from abroad, file action in courts, say my deed is more legal than the LCT did, but people have lived there for 30 years now. They are wanting their land. Take the issue like that. How is it going to be solved? Is it going to be solved by just political leadership, or ground level new institutions which could resolve these things? So that is what the JO is addressing itself.
Mr. Gunawardena, before we go there, I want to ask you a question. Now, we saw the example of Vimal Veeravansa saying that we should raise black flags when Narendra Modi came here. We discussed that issue. But I want to take your attention to how the opposition and various other factions accuse the government of its ministers having no collective responsibility or miscommunication. We saw it when the bond issue happened. We continue to see this happening. How can you say that the joint opposition has a collective responsibility? You yourself said Vimal Veeravansa came on the stage and expressed his opinion. There might be future incidents like that as well. Who is controlling the view of the joint opposition? Is it you? Is it someone else? How does the joint opposition operate? What is its objective? And who decides that?
The leaders meet weekly and we take decisions, and normally we do not go against the decisions. We have to raise an issue, we discuss and raise the issue. That is the way we have been coming as an alliance. No parties are not being dissolved, each party has its own identity, but we discuss and move forward. As you say, the government itself expresses, different ministers are expressing views against each other in government on issues. But we have not been so. Now this black flag issue, of course, is taken as the glaring example. Was not a JO position, was not canvassed by President Rajapaksa and any of the leaders, so it is not a JO position at all.
Mr. Gunawardena, we discussed about this issue as well, but I want to take you back there. The issue regarding Saitam, how all these professional doctors, professionals came onto the street and protested. Fingers were raised at the joint opposition, saying the joint opposition was behind these protests, that you all are the people who are telling the doctors to protest maybe. But now you are saying in this black flag issue and how this Vimal incident was handled by the joint opposition, you are now saying, you know, it was not us, this was not the idea of the joint opposition. Who's to say that maybe someone from the joint opposition told the doctors to protest, and you might come forward sometime later and say, you know, this was not the idea of the joint opposition, this is what this particular individual wanted at that time.
No,
Who is handling these matters?
It is not a joint opposition action. It is action of the medical faculties and GMOA, where broad support has been called for, because the government has not solved the issue which the government could solve. And it is a national issue. Free education, free health are important national issues which has to be addressed from any quarter of political grouping. The government itself is did not, they are divided on the issue. One can see difference of opinion in the government.
That was just an example, Mr. Gunawardena. But moving on to my next question, if you put former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and the joint opposition on the other side of the scale, what happens? Can you survive without the former president? Or is the joint opposition rallying around the former president to take advantage? How does this work? The joint opposition and the former president.
Former president has been with the progressive movement right through. As for former president is working with the progressive parties as an alliance. So how can he quit and say take Mahinda Rajapaksa out and see how the result is? I mean, Mahinda Rajapaksa, ever since he came to politics, have been working with the progressive movement. I don't want to go back and remind the country. His father has been with the progressive movement, with the left movement as far back as Suryamal campaign of 1935, when he chaired with my father and Dr. N.M. Pereira. So the left, the progressives have been working together, and Mahinda Rajapaksa is part of this movement to restore Sri Lanka's victories.
So if one day former President Mahinda Rajapaksa decides to retire completely from politics and stay at home and watch everything from TV, the joint opposition will survive without any problems?
Obviously, leaders come, leaders retire, they hand over to others. It has happened in Sri Lanka before. We have had Dudley Senanayake retiring, President Jayawardena taking over. We have had President Jayawardena retiring, President Premadasa taking over, the other two fighting, late Gamini Disnayak and late Adulat Mudali fighting against the next takeover, and they collapsed. Mrs. Chandrika Kumatunga took over.
There's a question from a well-respected chamber, a representative from a well-respected chamber. You said that today Mattala is earning money. This individual says that even if Mattala is closed, the aircrafts would still fly. If there's an emergency, flights can be diverted to any airport. Hence, Mattala earning money is not a very substantial evidence to say that Mattala is a good investment that was made by the previous regime.
My argument is, I've seen the reports for 30 years in Parliament. Second airport was being canvassed by every government. Second airport. Otherwise, we had to go to Chennai, and for every flight to Chennai, we had to pay. Now, therefore, second airport is necessary. Second airport was initially proposed in the south, and another report said in Polonnaruwa. So the decision was made to have the second airport. Now it is a costly affair, the government says. You don't go and dump paddy in a airport that is air conditioned. I mean, this is disaster. Psychology of a government. Is it unbecoming of a minister or whoever it is? I mean, we never did such things. We criticized Gamini Disnayak on some projects. We didn't go and break up the dams. So you can see the psychology of the antipathy towards Mattala. Mattala is a necessity as an airport, international second airport. But it could also be developed because there's big traffic, tourist traffic, which can come to Mattala and move up the hills and the south. I mean, let us not, we have studied all this, tourist board has submitted so much of reports. It can be done. Why is the government not taking this seriously?
Mr. Gunawardena, there was no paddy dumped at any airport, but in 2012 your government, which was in power, brought in a act which was called the Expropriation Act that took over approximately around 30 institutions that were vested with foreign companies, and this still has the effects in the forward march of investments in Sri Lanka, stating that they don't have confidence because of this action that was that took place. In particular, the Sri Lanka Exhibition and Convention Center, which was handled by Singaporeans at one point, was taken over by your government without any substantial backing to say that it was making losses. Why?
No, now first issue is on Matala. Matala was packed with paddy by this government as they came. I mean, they aren't becoming of a government or a minister to behave like that. Secondly, on the takeover of some of these institutions which are running virtually and not functioning. In some of the trade zones, they were not functioning. It had to be taken over in order to make it legal to be handed back to any other investor. Some institutions, as you say, you gave an example, a good example by the northern lake of the Bere, which was earmarked for a massive development. Even now the government is canvassing.
I spoke to the chairman of the SLECC at that time, who was a foreign national. He said that when they were making money, the government took over the convention center.
Obviously,
what sort of confidence will we have in the present regime?
They were making money and they were a successful institution. But their lease also.
Where is business
lease was being extended so many times, but that whole area.
It was a 99-year lease, Mr. Gunawardena.
No.
It was taken over in just 18 to 20 years.
No, renewable clauses were there. But
why
that
whole if that's the case, if there is a renewable clause, you wait until the period is over and then let the government take over. But there was an act that was brought in place in the year.
Yeah, because that was earmarked for a bigger development. From just in front of a lake house and right up. Now even now you could see present government going on this development.
Mr. Gunawardena, where is the business confidence that you were talking about in your opening remarks when you said that many people have lost confidence in the country's economy? You meant it. And where was the business confidence in the year 2011-2012 when the Expropriation Act was brought into place?
I'm not promoting an act of this nature, but certain institutions were virtually bankrupt in some of the trade zones, which had to be taken and corrected. If the BOI cannot do it, there has to be certain law to correct it. Our sugar factories, the same problem took place. Obviously, it had to be because we, rather than producing sugar, we were producing alcohol. That was not the agreement that was meant when it was handed over, so correction has to be made at some point. So this law was introduced in order to correct certain areas and also correct some areas for new development.
Mr. Gunawardena, to this question, I'd like you to answer not diplomatically but a very heartfelt and true answer.
Try.
How do you think the joint opposition needs to react in terms of curbing, reducing, minimizing and eliminating the hate speech, the racial hatred that is being seen in clusters? There's the non-implementation of the law all around, and this is rather alarming. Why do you think that mere condemnation of it is sufficient? Don't you think that you, as someone with so many decades of experience as a politician, really need to step up your game and rally together the joint opposition and really stand up for all Sri Lankans?
We are for all Sri Lankans. If you just follow up what the joint opposition has been raising, as well as taking the issues we have raised for all our countrymen, irrespective of whether they are in the north, east or south or in the plantation. When a state worker is hung in the police station, there was no one to speak. The joint opposition got up and spoke for the state worker. Now, these are instances which is sometimes not coming into the news. But as you say, there is a key issue where everyone has to move forward in this direction of hate speech. It may be maybe other ways of where the law is not being implemented. The police has to implement the law. It's not the politician. We have to agitate, pressurize, that's all. That what else can we do? We have to agitate and pressurize. The government can come to parliament and just give an answer and go. Government itself
previous government was in power. The Prevention of Terrorism Act was in place. It was never repealed. It has been condemned widely as a draconian law. However, that was still in place when your government was in power.
Yeah,
there was media suppression all around. It's widely acknowledged.
PTA,
do you agree with that?
PTA, we were reducing the number of persons taken under PTA and trying to move into a new area of how we could tackle the terrorist problem, because the terrorist issue was virtually over except for those who have been taken into custody. This is one aspect which we were addressing in the numbers. On the media, people say we were against the media. When we were not against the media, there was issues with the media which had happened, which all of us are not going to say that we were party to. No, Lasanta was my friend. I'm one minister who went to Lasanta's funeral, even to his house. So I would get up when Lasanta was beaten up and brought to Kirlapana police station. The UNP leader didn't turn up. I went as MEP. So I don't want to talk of these things. Those are separate actions of different political parties. But generally, there was a feeling that the press was not being given all its independent actions. In Supreme Court, we fought for the media when the 19th Amendment came. Media was to be punished. We got that clause out in the 19th Amendment. Otherwise, perhaps by now, you all would have faced similar issues. Now, what I'm trying to say is that we have to reconsider of certain shortcomings that the last government's era went through. We have to come up with a new program, which we are now discussing with a new program. New people will come, a lot of young generation will come into local government, provincial councils. I don't want to say much more. So we want a change to take place.
But could you
that is what President Rajapaksa wants in this country.
Could you give an undertaking to the general public who's watching you from home, that you would, in your capacity as the leader of the MEP, member of the joint opposition, that you would do everything in your power and more to stop this racial hatred that is spreading in the country?
We have totally opposed and condemned, and we are not going to support any such thing. That I would say, this is our stand right through. There may be elements who are running here and there. You can't stop that in every country. You have it in Britain, you have it in England, in India, you have it in USA. But those are smaller groups. The major parties have to take very clear stand, and we are very clear on that issue.
Mr. Gunawardena, I want to ask you a question with time running out. Now, throughout the show, when the finger was pointed at the previous government, the answer was that the mandate of the people was to change them, and a new government is in power, and if the same government, that was the answer that was echoed. What is the alternative that is available to the people if they want to create a change? Is it going back to the previous Mahinda Rajapaksa who was defeated by the people? What is the alternative? Or is it the joint opposition represented by you and the 52 members that you speak of? Where are the people going to look at if they want to change?
Yeah, obviously we have made such a lot of moves as the joint opposition and as the key opposition, the alternative today. There is no other alternative to this government. It is a matter of having better program and better assurance to the people. That is what is being today asked for. That we will not have any more Mervyn Silvas. Mervyn Silvas are not with us now. The Mervyn Silvas are with the UNP government. They are moved away. We shall not have such Mervyn Silvas or such elements in our political representation. Like that, we will take certain steps so that we move in a much more acceptable, much more responsible and a fruitful result for the country. The economy also has to grow. The younger generation must benefit. Today, if you take the central bank statistics, it shows that the youth employment has risen unprecedentedly. That is the only sector where they give an alarming signal. Our Middle East employment brings the money that is running the country today. What have we done for them? What are we going to do for them? This is another aspect which we have to consider. Middle East, Southern Europe and East Asia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, for your thoughts. We're now going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. Let's hear from Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena what his future plans are as far as politics is concerned. Mr. Gunawardena also has a young individual who is a very young, energetic boy. Let's ask about a little bit about him as well, whether you would look at him to join politics in the near future. Is Sri Lanka having the right environment for individuals like that to enter the political sphere? All this and more after short commercial break. Stay connected. Stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation, the final round. Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, leader of the Mahajan Exalt Peramuna, you said that better programs are needed, and this is the vision of the public right now. Let's be realistic now. In order to implement better programs, you need a leader. Now, based on the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, one thing is clear. President Mahinda Rajapaksa cannot be the president of Sri Lanka. He cannot contest a third term. Is that clear, Mr. Gunawardena? Then you have Gotabaya Rajapaksa or Basil Rajapaksa, who has dual citizenships. And you had Basil Rajapaksa very openly telling the BBC that he will not give up his dual citizenship because his family is in Florida. So he needs to travel back and forth to the US. So he wants that passport. So this gives rise to us as to really who is going to lead the JO. Who is the leader? Is it you?
Thank you for that comment. It clears one issue, that is that the JO is the alternative to this government, and JO
who is going to lead the JO?
JO will be the next government. Now, it's a matter
who
of
is the leader.
If it is the leader, we will have a program first that will be presented, and on that program, the elections would be faced. What are we going to have?
Who is the candidate?
First, candidate will be announced. I mean, you don't have to announce candidates every day. The program has to be evolved, where the country can move forward. Country can be, economy can be raised. I mean, not only the individual, we have to have a joint program. This is what we are seriously discussing. More democratic power to the people. The so-called constitution that we are discussing today will not give anything of the sort. What we have to do is to get participatory democracy, where people at grassroots will participate and will be alert on so many issues in the future.
Mr. Gunawardena, you spoke very high of the former president Mahinda Rajapaksa. You all said in 1935 how his father was instrumental in ensuring that there was a progressive movement in Sri Lanka. Mr. Gunawardena, your father was also a very progressive man. He was one of the founders of the Mahajan Ekta Peramuna, which had a lot of say in Parliament at that time. And in 1983, when you came into Parliament, the same format. You had approximately around 3 members of Parliament who were representing the MEP. It became 4 later on in the year 2000, and it just kept on increasing. Why don't you think, I posed this question to you several months prior to the August 17th presidential poll in 2015. I interviewed you just before the Nugegoda rally took place, where you were speaking with Vasudeva Nanayakara. I was at your residence in Narahempita. We had a very candid chat. I asked you the same question. I said, why hang on to a leader who has been defeated? Why can't you be an alternative? Aren't you popular enough to take on the mantle and move forward? Why not say, I am the leader of the JO, rally around me? Is that really practical, at least?
No, it is a decision that the alliance will take. It is a decision that the alliance has to take and move forward. When
are you in the running at least? Are you in the running at least?
I'm running now. So many people are running. I mean, you can't stop anyone running, because democratically in the market economy we are all running. But what I'm trying to say, it is a program that will bring a new leader who will deliver the program on a new platform.
Can that leader be you, at least?
Up to the JO. I have said no. I have not said no. I'm available like any others. But what we have to worry about is a program, so that the program is implemented. All what we have seen today is a mandate given and not being honored. This is the crisis today also. A lot of professionals, business circles, they say we did not expect this from this government.
Mr. Gunawardena, you have a son also who is quite young. Do you think that the young generation of Sri Lanka are fed up of politics now, or the way in which things are moving? Because in 2005 presidential elections we heard about the abolition of the executive presidency. It did not take place. 2010 we heard the same thing. 2015 we heard the same thing. Never has it taken place. The younger generation are somewhat fed up of Sri Lankan politics. Would you ever see your son at least coming into politics one day? Is that something that you would envisage?
That is not for me. I mean, it's for them to decide. The younger generation, I would feel, is what we can keep a lot of hope in the new generation, because they are educated, they are professional, they are alert of what is happening in the world, and also they have a love for the country, which is very well shown. Only thing is, the new generation must have a chance. Now, if you see, the new generation seems to be getting disgusted of what is going on at every corner, all areas of the economy, politics, or otherwise.
So do you think that the old who have been in Parliament should call it a day, hang their coat in the attic and say, this is the time to retire now and let the younger generation lead the country? Is this the time?
Yeah, when time comes, people will retire. But a new generation must be ready to take over. We have a cricket team which we have been coming to the top. So every team moves out and another team has to come. Same team cannot be batting forever.
And the best thing about cricket is it's full of surprises. Thank you very much, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure to have an individual like you on the show, and with your level of experience, it's always nice to be on the show, have you on the show, and articulate your position as far as the MEP as well as the joint opposition. Thank you very much, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, leader of the Mahajan Ekta Peramuna, as well as the leader of the joint opposition in Parliament. Thank you very much, Faraz. Thank you very much, Chaturanga. Thank you very much, Sonali. But before we go, Faraz, who is your guest tomorrow morning?
The Director General of the Public Utilities Commission, Mr. Damit Kumarasinghe. That's one.
So I'm pretty confident, Faraz, you'll be asking about the resignation of the CEO of Ceylon Electricity Board as well.
Yes, the ever wonderful, straight-talking, unafraid Honourable Vijayapala. and he's gone back to his lecturing days, and he's been rather silent. About time that we got him on a program.
Sure, for us. Thank you very much for joining us. It's always nice to have you on the boat, on the show for us, as always.
Thank you. It's a great
thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. Take care and good night.